And good evening. It is January 13th, 2022. I'm James Brierton, 9:16. It's time we talk some Carolina weather. We have winter storm watches up ahead of a winter storm this weekend. We have part of the lovely faces you know and love from the Carolina Weather Group, Scotty Powell in Morganton, Jared Smith in Charleston, and Evan Fisher in Asheville. They are going to be nerding out and bringing you through all the ups and downs of what they feel that they can expect in their regions as we look ahead to this winter storm coming this weekend. I want to welcome in everybody that's watching across the Carolina Weather Group platforms, including on the Carolina Weather Net, on our sister platforms, and for those of you watching on our YouTube, hello to you as well. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. We want to jump right into what can be expected from the storm before we get into some of the insights that our panelists have, as well as answering your thoughts and questions. So I'm going to tuck them away for just a moment, and we are going to set up the big picture here as we kick things off on this Thursday night. The National Weather Service has issued winter storm watches for the areas in blue on your screen. This include Charlotte, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Spartanburg, Asheville. It extends down south towards Colombia, stops just a little shy, but northern Colombia metro, you have this winter storm watch that goes into effect Saturday night and continues through Sunday because of the anticipated impacts from snow, ice, and other winter precipitation that we'll be walking you through here in just a moment. We're also going to be watching for this winter storm watch to more than likely be extended into other areas. So if you're joining us tonight from Winston-Salem, from Greensboro, from Boone and Blowing Rock, we'll explain when you can anticipate seeing some winter weather here coming up in the next few minutes. Let's start by looking at the model runs. And I want to tell everybody right off the front here, model runs are just anticipations of what computers think we could see. So this is one particular model run. There are other scenarios, but we're going to use it to kind of set up what's at play here as we make our way through Saturday into Saturday night. As you're heading to bed after dinner hours, Western North Carolina, starting in the higher elevations, you're going to start to see some of the first snowflakes falling across the area. And then it's really during the overnight hours through early Sunday morning when that precipitation moves on in. We're tracking a low that is going to be coming across the southeast, and the positioning of that low will really determine where this rain snow line sets up. So in this particular moment in time right here, as we are looking ahead to the overnight hours, you can see that if the low tracks far enough south, we will see more areas with more snow. Now, we are not talking snow in Charleston. I need to say that, but we are talking about snow, of course, in Western North Carolina. And the big question is going to be that I-85 corridor. So as we play this forward, you can begin to see we're going to get some mixing in of warm air. And so what turns on the screen into red and purple, this is your sleet, your ice, and your freezing rain. Things that we should not shrug off, but they're really hard to pinpoint still 72 hours out. You're continuing to see now precipitation across much of the Carolinas, more snow across Western North Carolina, and even some more snow that could wrap back in by the time this is all said and done in places like Charlotte, as the low continues to track over the region, then becoming another problem for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Let's rewind that and show it to you one more time here, because what I want to show you, let's look at Charlotte, North Carolina, because this is where we have some questions and some uncertainties remaining on what type of precipitation we'll see. But watch how many times the precipitation changes in Charlotte on this computer model. It goes from rain to snow to sleet to freezing rain, and then maybe ice mixing back in before last licks of snow move on out. So that could leave us with a whole combination of things in places, not just Charlotte, but Charlotte is kind of the figurehead of where we could see on the northern half of Mecklenburg County a completely different story than the southern half of Mecklenburg County. We'll talk more about those model runs coming up, but the positioning of that low to be determined and is going to be key to determine who exactly gets what type of precipitation. But here's a good look at where we can expect to see impacts. This is the probability the National Weather Service puts out of where they could be issuing winter storm warnings. That's where the watch gets upgraded to something that is happening and taking place. And of course, with 100% confidence, we can say that the mountains, the higher elevations of Western North Carolina and into those ridges of upstate South Carolina, you are going to see a winter storm this weekend. It's those probabilities that begin to drop off as we come into that I-85 corridor in Charlotte and in the Triad, where our confidence goes from over 80% to maybe 50%, and then decreasing as you make your way further to the south and to the east. We know you have lots of questions about what it could look like for places, including Raleigh-Durham. We'll try to get to those coming up. Here is a look at the official National Weather Service forecast on this Thursday night. This is what the forecast at the National Weather Service thinks. And while they might be calling for 11 inches of snow in Asheville, 10 inches in Hickory, 4 inches in Charlotte, there are other scenarios on the table that our panel will be walking you through in tonight's extended episode that could make these numbers go up or potentially probably down. And again, I draw you into my home turf here in Mecklenburg County, where you have a little bit of yellow showing you maybe 6 inches up by Lake Norman, but then that number is dropping down towards that 3-2 range as you make your way to the Union County, North Carolina line. Let's talk about the ice. This is really where my concerns are. Whether you get 2 or 3 inches of snow is not going to make a huge difference, but getting a 1/10 of an inch of ice or a 1/4 of an inch of ice, that's a huge game changer. And you can see places like Charlotte are going to be right there in that critical transition zone between rain and snow. And if we get just the right ingredients to make ice, we could be talking about down power lines, down trees, and people who are looking for heat amongst this really cold weekend. And that could also extend into portions of South Carolina. This could shift. It may not be an ice storm for Charlotte. We still have uncertainty 72 hours out, but we want to show you the ice potential from Shelby to Greensboro into Raleigh, because this is certainly a factor that you should be prepping for as we still have Friday and Saturday ahead of this storm arrival. All right, let's talk about South Carolina. Looking now again at the National Weather Service, you can see 8 inches of snow potential there in those highest elevations right up against the North Carolina border, dropping down to 6 inches as the elevation brings it down into the metropolitan areas of Greenville and Spartanburg along that, yet again, I-85 corridor. That really sets up so many times, as you've heard us talk about, that transition zone. Now, the National Weather Service is still calling for 2 inches in Anderson and maybe an inch of snow to the north of Columbia, 3-4 inches in places like Rock Hill or York County. But again, it's not all snow in some of these places. We're also going to be watching for the potential of ice. So you can see how the National Weather Service South Carolina map matches up with the North Carolina map from the National Weather Service, where in that greater Charlotte metro area, here in this case, Lancaster County, we are looking at a 1/4 inch of ice. This again could shift, but if somebody ends up with a 1/4 inch of ice, that is going to be certainly very memorable. The other thing I'll point out as we are looking at the ice potential across so much of South Carolina, in the opinion of the National Weather Service, there could be portions of the I-95 corridor that sees a little bit of icing mixed in with their rain when temperatures get just cold enough. So we will be keeping a close eye on this, and I want to bring back in the rest of our panel and remind everybody that you can find updates on this forecast throughout the next couple of days by liking and subscribing to the Carolina Weather Group on YouTube and all of our platforms. But let me bring in our panel, guys, because that is the Reader's Digest version of what could happen, but that's not the only thing on the table, is it? Let's start in Asheville.
Asheville. All right. I believe
Evan
that's
Fisher.
me, unless you guys have decided to move. Yes. So, James, thanks for covering that. Really good job for all the Carolinas. Here in Western North Carolina, you saw the accumulation forecast of 11 inches for Asheville. That is certainly within the realm of possibility. With here at the Carolina Weather Group, we are a little bit inclined to believe that might be on the higher side of what's possible. And we're tempted to lean a little bit lower in our forecast. And let me tell you why. We're going to have a warm nose pushing up into the Carolinas up from the coast. And that warm nose is going to create the freezing rain that James just talked about and sleet, especially as you get into the western Piedmont and into the foothills of North Carolina. That sleet is what we're a little bit worried about. It's really hard to bet against it in all of these Miller B winter storms. It almost always gets to us at some point. So we're a little bit concerned that sleet will mix in for the mountain areas Sunday afternoon, roughly 1 to 5 p.m. That is a period when we could see heavy sleet for the near areas along the Blue Ridge escarpment. There is certainly some uncertainty there. And that some forecasts are showing all snow, and those are the ones that you're seeing the 12 to 18 inch forecast, and others are expecting more sleet, and that's where you're seeing the 6 to 12 inch forecast. So if you want to be really broad and say 6 to 18 inches, that's great. You'll cover all your possibilities, but I think we're a little bit safer to settle into maybe 6 to 12 inches here in the mountains, with 12 being on the high side, as long as you're below 4,000 feet.
Yeah, Evan, I'll pick it up here outside of the foothills, and it's definitely a tricky forecast for sure. We know a lot. We know that the cold air is going to be here. That's pretty given. We got high pressure over the northeast in this CAD situation. It's going to be really cold. I mean, we're looking at temperatures Sunday afternoon, maybe in as low as the mid to low 20s. I've even seen some models put portions of the foothills in the upper teens. I don't know if we'll get that cold, but I do know we're going to be cold enough. So whatever is falling from the sky, snow, sleet, freezing rain, it's going to stick. It's going to accumulate. That's going to make it for a really messy day. So we know the cold air is going to be here. We know the timing is most likely Sunday, but I have noticed in a little bit of model guidance, the NAM starting to get into the more short range. It's actually showing a few upslope snow showers on Saturday afternoon. I'll have to watch that trend, see if that continues. It's going to have to battle some dry air, so I'm not sure if that will fall all the way to the surface here in the foothills. The mountains definitely may see a little bit more of those upslope snow showers Saturday afternoon, but storm really gets going on Sunday. And it's going to be an all-day event ending early Monday morning. So we know the cold air, we know the time, and it's just really that precipitation that Evan was talking about. And it's all dependent on that low. If we can get that low to track closer to the coast where Jared's at in Charleston, that allows the colder air to really set up shop and kind of eliminates that warm nose. But if that low travels into the eastern part of North South Carolina, that definitely brings that warm air aloft, not at the surface, but aloft, closer to us, meaning that we'll have to deal with that freezing rain and sleet. So for the foothills, kind of going off what Evan said, my forecast right now is anywhere between 6 to 10 inches from places like Marion up to Morganton, Lenoir, Taylorsville, even portions of Catawba County, Hickory, over towards Statesville, kind of that Interstate 40 corridor north up into the Yadkin Valley, even portions of Winston-Salem, I think could really get tucked into that cold air. And I think we do battle a period of sleet, at least from everything that I'm seeing right now, maybe the late afternoon hours, but it looks like it could transition back over to snow before everything kind of ends over the area on Sunday night into Monday morning. But it's going to be a dangerous day no matter what. If we get 6 inches of snow, 10-inch snow, it's going to be the same, and it's same impacts, and it's going to cause treacherous travel, icy roads. If you get snow to fall and then you get sleet and freezing rain on top of that, kind of gives it that crusty surface, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. It's going to cake up in the trees. It's going to cake up on the power lines. I really think the impacts are going to be the huge story. I mean, the snowfall definitely probably the most widespread winter weather event we've had in North Carolina and South Carolina since 2018. But I think when we're kind of looking back at the scenario, we're going to see the impacts. And that's just from the snow with ice on top of it. You're just not going to be able to go anywhere Sunday and Monday. And that could linger into the next week where temperatures stay in the 30s and 30s as high and 20s as lows, especially anywhere west of the Triad back towards the mountains and foothills. So watching that as well, a very dynamic system. We can definitely talk more details, answer some of your questions. But Jared, I know you guys at the coast not necessarily dealing with the winter weather, but you could have some more problems on your head with some heavy rain down there.
Yeah, Scotty, it will. There's a lot of moisture with this thing. I think that's the first thing. There's a really good tap from the Atlantic. That's going to help drive some of those snow rates up there potentially. And I think that's why the Weather Service is going on the higher end of the scale there. But yeah, towards the coast, we're not going to necessarily get into the freezing conditions. There is a small chance that we could maybe see a brief period of freezing rain close to I-95 in the Tri-County area, but I am not feeling it. I'll tell you, it just does not look like anywhere in the Charleston metro area, anywhere south. If you're Beaufort, Hilton Head, those areas down to Allendale, probably it's going to be a rainy day. It's going to be a nasty rainy day. 1 to 2 inches of rain, certainly possible, especially as you get further up. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my screen full and I'm going to go over and take a look at I've got the NAM from the 18Z NAM up here. And again, we want to be careful about cherry picking weather models. Yes. But the NAM seems to be mirroring the Weather Service forecast decently well. So let's just take a look at what this looks like for South Carolina. So I'm going to back this up a little bit. So here's Saturday night. Here's that upslope snow that that Scotty was talking about, perhaps falling up there again, very light, maybe battling some dry air. And then as time goes on, one of the lines that we're going to be watching is this blue line right here. And it might be a little tough to see, but that is that is the freezing level about 5,000 feet up. That is where the freezing air is. And that's important because this shows us where that warm nose is. And that warm nose is what is going to help drive, the potential for, snow versus sleet versus freezing rain. So again, this is Sunday morning here. We're going to start seeing some rain move in right away. I'm going to pan down a little bit. Your low, the NAM has the low somewhere in southern, far southeastern Alabama, maybe southwestern Georgia. And it's been fairly consistent with this, taking that low pressure, kind of moving it up the coast here at 18Z, which is 3 o'clock. We should be, or is it 3 o'clock? I math.
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. No, we're -5 now, so maybe it's
maybe it is.
Maybe it is 3. Who knows? Anyways, math. But all that to say that by the afternoon, I mean we've got a sleety and potentially freezing rainy mess across from Raleigh to Charlotte, possibly into Athens. And again, this is not exact, and this is certainly a model's interpretation of it. But again, we feel as if that this has a decent potential to verify. The other thing that I wanted to note too is that there's going to be the potential for some, again, some very heavy rainfall. And what the NAM is doing is developing kind of a squall line along the cold front that would feed, and that would then you would see a changeover from snow to rain, or for freezing rain to just regular rain. Raleigh down through Wilmington may have some heavy rainfall. The one other thing that we want to keep an eye on is the thunderstorm fuel, the convective available potential energy. If a little of this instability makes it onshore near the warm front, there is the potential for a couple storms to possibly briefly become severe. I'm going to turn on the 850 winds, and you can see that the winds, this again, there's about 5,000 feet. And when we look at that 850 wind, 67, 68 knots, that's 70, that's no joke. That's that is a pretty strong wind. And so if we get any decent convection firing here, we certainly could see some strong winds brought to the surface. And this threat will move up. And again, we're getting close to the end of the model run here, but what the NAM has right now, it does bring that line of thunderstorms out to the Outer Banks by about 10 o'clock on Sunday. So yeah, that it's going to be an interesting set of scenarios here. And the other hard part for us in the Carolinas here, as I go to the 2 meter temperatures, is you can kind of see what the thermal pattern is going to look like. We're going to have a situation where we're going to have high pressure building in from the north, and you can see this this deep blue, and that is where it's deep blue, that's freezing. Where it's light blue, that's getting close, and you can see it's kind of wedged in. It's that classic wedge pattern that often precedes freezing rain events here. And you'll see over time as that builds in, looks like the NAM has the warm front roughly. Let me do a little drawing here, if I can do so. All right. And guys, feel free to jump in anytime if you see something interesting. I'm just kind of bloviating for a minute, but yeah, let's so looks like we got a warm front kind of here, right? And then some discombobulated looking low pressure somewhere, let's say roughly here. And then we have the cold front trailing in behind it, going down this way. So just give a general idea of what the surface is going to look like about before noon on Sunday. So We'll see how far north that warm front can get. That's going to be one big question as far as where the freezing rain threat goes. How strong the wedge will be. Models can often underdo how strong the wedge can be. So certainly in that area, in that I-95 corridor in particular, in South Carolina, I think we're gonna have some. It's gonna be tough, guys. It's gonna be. This is not an easy forecast by any stretch of the imagination, and we're gonna have to do some nowcasting on this.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a tricky forecast, and we still don't know the exact track of that low, and we've got to figure that out. I forgot and I didn't mean to do this. We skipped the Piedmont area, so let's talk about the Greensboro, Raleigh area right quick, and then we can get to your questions. We went from the mountains, foothills to the coast. Let's get to Greensboro, Raleigh right quick. That is kind of that area of Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, of where we could see the greatest ice potential. That's where we feel confident that a warm nose will be there. Surface temperatures are going to be below freezing. Jared's got the radar up there, and you kind of see that pinkish and purplish colors. That's where the biggest threat for sleet and freezing rain is going to be. And in fact, as you were watching earlier, James popped up the freezing rain totals. We could see some significant freezing rain totals that could really create some issues along the I-85 up to the 95 corridor there. So if you kind of draw a line from Charlotte up to Greensboro, back towards Raleigh, kind of that area of central North Carolina and the Piedmont, that is the danger zone for sleet. We're going to get a little bit of snow, but it quickly transitions to a sleet, freezing rain. And I'm telling you guys, it's kind of scary seeing some of the raw model data that is coming out. Even if you cut what's coming out in half, that's still a big ice threat for that area. So if you live in Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Fayetteville, you are going to definitely want to pay attention to the forecast. You need to have your preparations made for the possibility of losing power for days, because this is going to be a wide scale event. Not only is it here in the Carolinas, but also Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, even North Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi could see some of this wintry weather. So if we do see power outages, it could be a widespread power outage thing. So it may not be the very next day that you get your power on. So it may be off a few days. So we need to keep an eye on that. So that was quickly covering the Piedmont areas. And if you want, we want to, I don't know, you and Evan, you and Jared have been on here this week doing the questions. So I'm not sure how you guys want to approach that, but we can figure out a way and try to get some of these questions answered.
Yeah, absolutely. I see one right off the top here from Michael McGuire. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you. What are the chances that we don't mix over at all along and west of I-77? I think that if you're between I-85 and I-77, South Carolina, and that little air part of North Carolina, you're probably going to mix. It seems unlikely to me that you should stay entirely snow. If I could wish that into existence for you, I would. But it does look like that's going to be the area we're really watching out for freezing rain and sleet. Unfortunately, it's going to be ice. What do you think, fellas?
Yeah, that warm nose is it's coming right off of the Atlantic. It's going to curve right around. It's going to curve right around the low there, and you're going to have just good warm air advection and warm air transport there. When I'm looking at the NAM and I look at some of the precipitation type algorithms, and again, these vary between the two, between different sources. So again, grain of salt here. We honestly see more in the way of freezing rain and sleet potentially than necessarily a pure snow. So yeah, I would say yes. Let's be very. We'll hope for the best, but it does not look that way right now. Things can change. We've got some time to work this out. So stay tuned. But right now, the odds do favor a mix.
Yeah, and honestly, the same goes for a lot of the cities in here that we're looking at. Hickory, there's a good chance that you could see some mixing from time to time, especially going into Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Nathan. Oak Island, Jared, I'm guessing that's probably a little bit more your realm. What do you think?
Yeah, Oak Island, you're going to be close, but it rain.
Rain. I'm sorry to do that to you, Mike.
There's one thing I've been keeping in mind too is, and I want to try and get to the, I want to try and find as many of these comments as possible. And again, thank you to Michael for your super chat. Definitely appreciated. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get rain. You may hear some rumbles of thunder there. Don't count on any wraparound snow. That's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. Unfortunately.
I've seen a few comments, kind of areas in the same area. We have seen Upper Cleveland County, Mooresville, the foothills up into like Wilkes County area. So if you guys we can take that. This is kind of that dividing line where we start off with snow late Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then at some point during the day we'll see those areas change over to sleet, freeze and rain, and then it looks like we could see another changeover back to snow before things are ending. So the Mooresville area, snowfall accumulation wise, I can't remember what the weather service said, but kind of just looking at ideas, anywhere between 2 to 4 inches of snow is possible before that sleet comes in. Remember though, guys, no matter where you're at, whenever that snow stops and that sleet begins, that snow will compact. It kind of compresses. And so you may have 7 inches of snow and then it starts sleeting and you notice, well, now it's only 5 inches of snow. So the compaction of the sleet really brings down the snowfall totals. So just remember that. Upper Cleveland County, you're again in that area where we could see anywhere between 2, 4, maybe even 6 inches of snow, just kind of dependent. Y'all jump in here. It really depends on how fast we transition from snow to the icy precip. The longer transition, the more snow you get. The less transition, or the quicker the transition, the less snow you'll get. I mean, that's now casting from what Jared said earlier. It's really coming down to now casting. We can throw all these accumulations out, but we're going to really have to focus on the radar and the observations to kind of see when that transition happens.
Yeah. We do certainly have tools in our tool belt to help us with that. We have the NAM. We talk about that a lot. It's really good with modeling this cold air damming that we've talked about. We have some other models that are not quite as good at modeling that. So we do take all of this into consideration, right? We take our experience and all of our gut feelings, as unscientific as that may be, but we've done this a few times before. We do put all of that head knowledge into these forecasts. And while we don't have a forecast that we're showing you, these are our thoughts on the forecasts that are out there. Mm-hmm. We do think perhaps what's being shown in West North Carolina might be a little bit high for now, but we're talking internally in our chat too. There are some really big runs coming in right now with 12 inches plus across the mountains. So we can't deny those. That possibility is certainly there. Some mountain communities could see a foot plus. But
yeah, Evan, I just saw what you sent me there, looking at the latest SREF plumes. And Jared, you're really good at explaining things. So I'm going to try to explain it. And if I get anything wrong, you let me know. But the SREF is kind of like these short range models, and we kind of put them all together and we come to a mean. And like, here's what all those little short range models are saying. We're going to add them together, divide it by whatever. And here's kind of what it populates as. Did I do a pretty good job at that?
That's about it. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea.
Evan, that's crazy what you sent me, man. Those are some extreme snowfall rates in the mountains.
The SREF plumes are not alone in showing that. I think the reason why the three of us have been a little bit more conservative in our conversation tonight is that we are concerned that the warm nose it's not being modeled as strong as it should be. But
yeah, I mean, we're still 3 days out on this too. We're not even getting into the highest resolution modeling yet. We're getting into the end range of the NAM, which, I mean, it could be, this could change somewhat dramatically for some people tomorrow. So, again, we're looking at these runs, but what's nice about tools like the SREF is that it is an ensemble. It is a series of models coming together to give you probabilities, and probabilistic forecasting is absolutely the way that you got to do it with this winter stuff. Yeah. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're trying to figure out, play the odds here. What are the odds that we see, 12 inches of snow in some places? What are the odds that we see ice? What are the odds that we see certain things? So, so those tools are extremely helpful. And again, that's just one tool in the tool belt.
Mm-hmm. I will say this. if you don't find yourself under that warm nose and you get lucky to have the whole column of air cold throughout the whole duration of the storm, somebody's going to hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
The moisture content is impressive.
There's a lot of moisture. Yeah.
Yeah. The moisture content is certainly impressive. It's definitely on the high end for what we would expect for January. Coming out of the Atlantic, there's some places along the coast, in particular, the precipitable water valleys get over 1.25 inches, that's for January. That's impressive.
Right.
And that is going to be funneling up and potentially upslope. So could get interesting. Very much so. I want to move on to some other questions here. We've got a lot of questions coming in for various locations. So I'll take Monk's Corner here. Monk's Corner, not likely that you're going to see snow. Unfortunately, it looks like that freezing cutoff line is going to stay inland of you. Again, we're going to keep an eye on that because, if the wedge does trend stronger, you may not necessarily see snow, but I think ice could be a brief concern before the warm front translates further inland. So if there is going to be any sort of non-liquid or freezing precipitation in the Charleston Tri-County area, it's going to be in that I-95 corridor, but far northwestern part of Dorchester, far northwestern part of Berkeley. And even as I say that, it is a very small chance right now. It is overwhelmingly, the probabilities favor rainfall. So that is good. That is much less disruptive. It's just a rainy day. You're going to sit inside and watch wild card football, right? I mean, I know that's what I'm going to probably be doing at some point. So no major issues there. So we've got Dip. He just got out of the shower. So clean. And he wants to know if he's missed anything important relating to Spartanburg. And guys, I think again, Spartanburg is very much in the grab bag, right? And the kind of the highway to the mixing zone.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely pick up some snow, but at some point it's going to transition to sleet. I'm not sure that the snowfall. Looking at, I think from what GSP said, is like 2 to 4 inches down there before it transitions.
But that county is a sharp gradient too. That's something you got to keep in mind.
From the north to the south.
Yeah, we're this whole storm is sharp gradients.
Yeah. It's entirely possible that the northwestern part of Spartanburg County sees 8 to 12 inches of snow, and the southeastern side sees 2 to 4, maybe less.
Yeah,
that's going to be tricky
for sure.
Yeah, that as well as like the Greenville Mountains. I'm trying to think of those Oconee Mountains. So if you kind of live in the upstate area from Oconee County over to Spartanburg County, if you live north of 85, like Evan was saying, you could definitely see some big totals up that way.
Yeah. Hey, one thing that I've missed that I wanted to point out real quick before we take the next question, see a few more coming in. So guys, we're going to get to them very quick shortly. Southwestern North Carolina. I hate to do this to you, but this happens a lot in these Miller B scenarios. The deep valleys of Southwest North Carolina, that's Bryson City, getting down into Lake, which has just escaped me. The awesome lake to hike around. Man, clearly I don't go down there enough.
You'll remember it when it shows up.
Yeah, exactly. And the deep valleys, unfortunately, it looks like it may be tough for the cold air to penetrate down there, as well as the warm, and it may be easy for the warm air to penetrate above. So the National Weather Service is eyeing that area for significantly lower totals. So if you are down around 2,000, 2,200 feet or below in Southwest North Carolina, temper your excitement. This could get rough. We've got a buddy, Local Yokel Weather, on Twitter. He's really good forecaster, really good at that area. And he's been eyeing this for days now. And unfortunately, it looks like they may come to a fruition. So I'm sorry to deliver the bad news, but those deep valleys could be a little tough for the cold air to get into.
Yep. Nathan Watson is asking about Hickory.
I can take Hickory. So Hickory, you're on that edge. I'm telling you. Evan was talking about the gut and experience and living where I live, experiencing the storms that I've experienced. Sometimes when we get that cold, high pressure, that CAD built in, it kind of likes to tuck into the foothills, and just the foothills hangs on to the cold air just a little bit longer than a lot of other places. I think that's a possibility, but I also think at some point that warm air loft moves in and changes things over to sleet. So if you're holding my feet to the fire, Nathan, this is what I've posted on my personal weather page. You're more than welcome to check it out. But I've got the Hickory area anywhere between 6 to 10 inches of snow and sleet. So that's a snow sleet mixture with maybe 1/10 of an inch of ice on top of it. I think at some point we could maybe even get a little bit of a dry slot, where we get a little bit of drizzle, but nothing really coming from the sky, but from a little bit of drizzle to put that little crusty layer on top of the snow sleet. Right now I have 6 to 10 inches. I know the Weather Service is a little bit higher than that. If you look at the SREF plumes and some of the model data, a little bit higher than what I've been going with, but I feel confident with that right now. We'll have to watch that warm nose and again, just to see how far west it gets. But if you're living in Hickory, there's not really much of a difference between 4, 6, 10, and even 8 or 4, 6, 8 or 10 inches of snow. Snow is snow, and the situation that we're going to have is going to cause major impacts no matter really the depth of the snow. Once you get over 4 or 5 inches, it's all the same. It's going to create travel issues on the road and potentially some power outages. So just prepare for that. My buddy Christian Morgan, our buddy here at the show, he's had a great saying today. He's like, you need to be where you need to be Saturday night and just hunker down throughout the day, Sunday and the first part of Monday. Wherever you need to be for a couple of days is where you need to be Saturday night, and just let the storm pass through Sunday. And by Monday afternoon, hopefully things will start to, at least the main roads will start to get opened back up and you can get back to what you need to do. But impacts are going to be the big thing. No matter if it's 6 inches of snow or 10 inches, we're going to have major impacts.
For sure. So High Point area, guys.
That's the danger zone.
Yeah, that's the danger zone.
That's the danger zone. I think you get snow first part of the day. Eventually, mid to late morning, it transitions to sleet and then probably transitions to freeze and rain. So you're going to get a mixed bag of all of it. I don't think your snowfall accumulation is going to be as much as it would be in the western part of the state. I think 3 to 6 might be a safe bet on the snowfall and sleet mixed together. And then you're going to get a decent amount of ice on top of that. I think some of the models are showing anywhere between 1/4 to maybe even 1/2 an inch of ice. Some of the forecast suggestions on that. So that's going to be the danger zone, because you're going to have snow and then a lot of ice on top of that. That's really going to be very impactful. So
the only thing that's worse is ice and then snow.
Yeah.
That was 2018 here in Charleston. Not fun.
Yeah. And you're not, and that's the thing, guys, is we're not getting rid of this the next day. It's not like your typical North Carolina, South Carolina winter storm where it snows one day and it's sunny and 50 the next. That's not the case in this situation. It's going to be around for a few days at least. So just prepare for those impacts.
Yep, absolutely. Keith Griffin wants to know about Sumter, South Carolina. Again, this is a little off the I-95 corridor. Home of Shaw Air Force Base, hoping for rain and as limited ice as possible. And the good news is it looks like that is how that's going to pan out. You may be dealing with a little bit of a icy start to the day. There could be a little bit of freezing rain in the Sumter area, but we're not expecting major impacts there. It's going to transition to rain by midday, if not sooner. It's transition to regular rain. We're going to start getting some the temperatures look like they're going to start to come up a little bit, depending again on, this is going to depend on, how far inland that warm front can get. And there is still that possibility that we may see a little more ice than currently forecast. So I will say that ice is certainly, that you're going to be on that gradient zone. You're going to be right in that area. That's going to be really tricky. But the odds do favor a limited ice event and then generally rainfall going into the evening. So we'll need to see, but and so don't write it off just yet. I would say that the ice is certainly in the cards. How much we have is going to be is still something that's going to be modulated very much by where this warm front sets up. We have no ice storm in Southeast Colombia. I hope that pans out for you. I don't have faith. Columbia is going to be in it for a little bit longer than Sumter. There is a sign of a dry slot kicking in that may cut it off a little early, and we'll see if that signal continues. But little concern there for Southeast Columbia, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
You guys want to add anything? Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. Great analysis, Jay.
Mm-hmm. 2 to 4 inches in Charlotte. What do we think of that?
I think that's a
Will
pretty good
Slivers.
bet. Yeah, pretty good bet.
Yep.
That's the biggest snowfall Charlotte's had, and it's past 2018 because they only got like 1 or 2 inches. I saw a stat on this earlier. I can't remember the stat, but I want to say like maybe 2014. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's been a while. Wow. So if they get 4 inches, it's been the most. Evan's looking up the data right now. I can see him.
Yeah. we can see the reflection. We can see the reflection in his glasses. We'll talk to. We'll chime in with Ashley here real quick while we get that information. And Orangeburg County, I-26, I-95. If you're in Orangeburg County, you have a small risk for a little bit of ice in the morning, but you primarily, it looks like right now, you're going to be very much in a rain event. We're not too terribly concerned about a major impactful ice storm there. Again, you're gonna be right on that edge between that ice and that rain. So Orangeburg, I think you're gonna be okay. I think you're gonna be fine. Again, rainy day, wild card football, gonna be a great day. If that's your thing, of course. So I think you're gonna be all right there. Jumping into Brandon's question here, what is the likelihood that the low trends southeast? And that's an interesting question. That will be modulated by how strong the wedge is. That will be modulated by how fast the low deepens. That will be modulated by a lot of things. The ultimate path of the upper air disturbance that's going to help spawn that low. I've not, I think that the models have been pretty clear on where they stand with that. I would say that the NAM is currently kind of the outlier as far as the southerly track, what we've been showing tonight. The GFS is decidedly much more north. In fact, the GFS went even further north on the 18Z run. The happy hour GFS is what we like to call it in weather terms. And the Euro is a kind of sane right in the middle. So we'll see what happens. Again, again, it's going to depend on, how amplified that trough ultimately gets, what kind of energy we see, with that shortwave, and and ultimately where the cyclogenesis forms, and that's still it's still very much up in the air as far as that goes. However, I will say this, that the high pressure wedge, again, constantly can be under modeled, and so depending on how strong that wedge is, that could push that low a little bit further south and east. The fact that the NAM is showing it where it's showing it, and the NAM has been performing, and NAM again tends to do okay with these wedge events. It has me thinking that maybe the GFS is certainly too far north, and maybe the Euro is a little bit too far north. So we'll see.
We're definitely, if you don't want ice, you're definitely pulling for that southeast trend.
No
if you're in North Carolina.
Yeah, no question about it. And unfortunately, that would spread the ice threat a little further south into South Carolina. So certainly something that we're going to be watching very closely. Could there be widespread power outages? I say anywhere that you get, if you're going to get a 1/4 inch of ice, that's the danger zone for ice accretion, and that certainly is a potential possibility.
You know what, Jared? Let's come back to that. I can pull up the winter storm index and kind of show.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Let's Winston-Salem, guys. What do you think?
Border area, we're going to see some mixing, probably a little bit. That's a little bit further north than the Hickory zone, which we were talking about. So you got a better chance of staying as snow for a little while longer. But we do still think that you'll see some mixing in there. Scotty probably got a better idea at the forecast there. 6 to 10.
Yeah, I went. It depends. Winston-Salem is Forsyth is one of those dividing regions. If you're Winston-Salem and to the northwest, I think you could achieve that 6 to 10. If you're a little bit more on the Greensboro High Point side, you may be on the lesser end of that 6 to 10, but you're gonna have to deal with more ice, freeze, and rain. So Winston-Salem's a great dividing line between the foothills and the Piedmont. So if you Winston-Salem to the north and west, I think you're more solid in the snow sleet. If you're in Forsyth County, more on the south and east side, you're going to have to deal a little bit more with that freeze and rain.
Yep. How about Monroe, guys?
Monroe.
That's a danger. I'm just going to be honest with you. If you look at GSP stuff, they tag that area with a 1/4 inch, and the Boone potential is actually 1/2 inch of ice. That could really serve could really bring some issues if you're in Monroe. Let's hope and pray that it's not that much, but the GSP and a lot of weather service offices, they kind of give you the boom, the not the bus, but the low end, what the forecast is and the high end. And the high end is up to a half an inch. The forecast right now is right around a quarter of an inch. So unfortunately, Monroe's kind of in that bullseye where we could see some pretty significant ice.
Yep. Got a question about wind in this storm, and I'd say that wind is certainly could play a factor, especially where we have convective elements. So it looks like right now that the highest wind threat is going to be further south. It's going to be along where it's going to be very near where the low tracks, where that low is deepening. So the wind is going to pick up there. We're also going to want to watch, areas along the coast. For example, we could see, 30, 40 mile an hour gusts, especially on the South Carolina coast, probably moving up as the line of storms moves up potentially into the eastern side of North Carolina towards the Outer Banks. So wind certainly could be a factor. And then we're going to have cold convection behind it. And that often can be gusty, 10 to 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, depending on where you are. Something that, certainly is not the prime issue that I think that we're going to deal with. But it will be noticeable, especially if you have, especially if you're in a kind of a weak power grid area. And if you have ice mixing in that too. So.
Oh yeah, it only takes 15 miles an hour with ice to make big problems. I would also like to add for the mountains too, we're still watching the wind trend. I'm not sold on it being super windy, but I am seeing in this latest suite of models the potential for gusty winds, winds gusting to 45 or stronger above 3,500 feet in the mountains going into the afternoon on Sunday. That would be co-located with a band of pretty heavy snow. I won't say the B word, blizzard. I said it. But for the highest elevations, I figured that I had to say it, otherwise people might get a little suspicious. For the highest elevations, we could see some strong wind gusts and some heavy snow Sunday afternoon. Not too many folks live up there, but perhaps someone tonight that's watching does. So just something to keep on your mind. Down in Asheville and the main valleys, it'll get gusty, but I don't think we're going to see anything incredible wind-wise.
Cool. Is there likely a snow total drop off at Winston versus Greensboro?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so. We're gonna lightning round a few of these real quick. So and then we'll get into a few additional ones. Lexington, South Carolina. You're very much in the ice zone. Sleet and freezing rain zone. You could see a little bit of snow to start, but sleet and freezing rain certainly seem to be your main jam. So I would be prepared for that. Let's see. We have a question. We'll be able to drive to Asheville. Ooh, when?
Yeah. I wouldn't. I've got friends coming to Asheville this weekend on Saturday, and I personally think it's a horrible idea. I would recommend against it. Driving conditions are going to be really, really bad on Sunday. They'll likely be bad into Monday. And if you're on the back roads, I don't expect my road to be plowed until Wednesday. Later in the week, or if you could just postpone it next week, and would be a little bit better. It's going to be not a great time to be on the roads.
Yeah, for sure. Edgefield, South Carolina. This is in the CSRA. You're in the ice zone. Ice, sleet, freezing rain looks like to be your primary concerns. It looks like that will cut off if the dry slot that the NAM is modeling is correct. It could cut off early though. In that area, and you may get a little bit of wraparound snow. So there's a little small possibility there. I won't say that you will, but that's certainly a possibility. Central part of South Carolina, I would say be ready for an ice storm. I would say that is the preparedness message there, especially the further west you are. Be ready for an ice storm there. Can we plan on ice skating in Lancaster? That's an interesting question, and it's going to be chilly. But I also think that you're going to be right on that line, depending on how far inland that warm front goes and that low pressure tracks. Again, Lancaster, is very near Charlotte. So, so you could see a whole smorgasbord of precipitation types.
You might be able to ice skate on the road. I saw a video of that recently from the Northeast. It doesn't take as much ice as you'd think. So
no, Simpsonville, your neck of the woods, again, very much in the smorgasbord and the choose your own adventure. You could get pretty much everything winter related. So that'll be very interesting there. Thomasville, North Carolina. You guys have any thoughts on the snowfall totals there?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so Thomasville, right there at the high point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. Thomasville on the east side of Interstate 85. I think you still get some snow to begin with, 2 to 4 inches. Transition into sleet and then freeze and rain. We could see up to a quarter of an inch of ice there. So you're definitely going to worry about snow, sleet, and freeze and rain. So some major impacts in the Thomasville area. So just have your supplies ready for potential power outages on Sunday if you live there in Thomasville and in the whole Triad area.
Yeah. Real quickly, Monroe, I think we touched on them, but ice, snow, or sleet, I believe.
I think you'll see a little snow at the onset, but it's mostly going to be sleet and freeze and rain.
Yeah. Will ask the question everybody wants to know. Thunder, snow. Funny,
we were talking about that before the show started. I say yes. I think there's a good chance for it. I think it's going to be mid-afternoon. Whenever that low gets cranked up off the coast, I think somewhere there's going to be an area that we see some really intense precipitation. And I think wherever that, we call it meteorological, that deformation zone, wherever that sets up, I think has the best chance of seeing some thunder, snow, or sleet. Thunder, sleet, maybe.
Yeah.
Thunder, sleet, I think that's rarer than thunder, snow. Cleveland County.
Depends on Cleveland County. Cleveland County is one of those like upstate. If you live in the northern part of Cleveland County near South Mountain State Park, South Mountain area, Lawndale, you're going to be a little bit more colder, so you should see some snow, sleet. If you live towards the border there near South Carolina, you could see a little bit more freeze and rain mixing in. Good chance of seeing at least 4 to maybe 6, 8 inches of snow before it all transitions to sleet and some freeze and rain. So it's going to be nasty. A lot of impacts. Stay at home. Be prepared to stay at home.
Yeah. Cheer camp in Charlotte on Saturday and Sunday, and they don't compete until Sunday. Will they be able to get back to Winston-Salem?
Probably not. I wouldn't advise that.
Yeah. Brevard driving on Saturday. Saturday probably okay. It's definitely Saturday. Yeah. I think.
I would just be a little wary. But Brevard, because you're low elevation, I'm not too worried about this there. But it does look, not even mentioned this earlier, there could be a funky band of precip overrun on a Saturday afternoon in the daylight hours. I don't think it's going to really impact travel that much, but it's just something to keep an eye on. We'll let you know if it's going to be impactful over the next day or two.
Yep. Let's do Chapel Hill, guys. So this is in the Raleigh, in the Research Triangle area. You're in the ice zone, guys.
Ice, baby.
Yeah,
could
definitely.
be a lot too.
Yep. I mean, so we're gonna be ready for an ice storm there. Be ready for power outages and travel issues on that day. I was
going to say, remember, anything like over 0.2 of an inch, quarter inch of ice, you're expecting trees and power lines and everything to come down. So unfortunately, that area looks like they could pick up at least that much, if not a little bit more than that. So that quarter inch of ice, kind of that threshold of where we start to see a lot of issues with ice.
Yep. We have questions around Aiken and Augusta, Georgia. So again, this is in this central Savannah River area. And this is certainly an area where we are going to be concerned, at least at the outset, for the potential for ice. I'm actually taking a look at the new NAM right now, the 0Z, and it looks like it may be getting you guys into the rain a little bit sooner there as well. And again, the dry slot will move through and cut things off, could potentially cut things off getting into the afternoon there. So we're going to watch that closely. Again, it's kind of you're going to be on the border there as far as what we might expect from precipitation types there from there. But I would suspect that you would probably see a brief start to freezing rain and then transitioning to just regular plain old rain getting later into the day. We have let's see, we Gatlinburg is close by. Let me pull that one up real quick. And any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Western side of the Appalachians, you're not looking quite as hot as the eastern side of the Appalachians. I'm thinking 2 to 6 inches. I think that's the official National Weather Service forecast for Gatlinburg in that winter storm watch. Likely leaning on the lower end of that. So 2 to 4 inches probably be a safer bet in Gatlinburg. And Pigeon Forge just down the road, kind of similar, maybe just slightly less.
Yep, cool. You do a couple more questions, and then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of reset this. Scotty's got some impact graphics that we want to show, and we'll kind of go back and talk about the overall situation for North and South Carolina. Just a couple more questions here, real quick, that I wanted to get to. Chloe asks, supposed to leave for Florida on Monday morning from Asheville. Should we leave before the storm?
Or if you're driving or flying. If you're
That's
flying, I don't think the air. I don't. There'll probably be some canceled flights.
If you're driving, you may have some iced over roads to deal with. Maybe not necessarily completely there, but I mean, all over there, I think it's going to be a bit of a mess.
If you could get here Saturday
on the highways.
Yeah,
driving.
She's driving, so Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think that 26 is going to be too much fun going down the mountain on Monday. Doable, perhaps, but you'll be safer on Saturday for sure.
Chances are good that if you're going to Florida, you probably do not have four-wheel drive. So there's that. So we'll want to be careful with that. One more meteorological question. NAM, what does it mean? And so happy to jump in there. So the NAM is the North American Mesoscale model. It is a model run across the continental U.S. That is a little bit higher resolution than what we see from the global models, such as America's GFS, Global Forecast System, the ECMWF, which is the European Center for Weather Forecasting, for their model, which is also a global model. Although they go to 9 kilometers, which is pretty rad because the Euro is amazing. But the NAM it's a short range model, goes out 84 hours, and we're going to have and so that is starting to give us an idea of maybe where some of the finer details are going to set up. Now, in the next day or so, we're going to get into the range of even higher resolution. They call it a nest of the NAM. It's a high 3 kilometer resolution. So that should give us that'll help us fine tune those details even a little bit better. One last question here, and then we'll reset it. Icy roads for the Charleston area? No. It looks very unlikely unless there's a major change. It certainly looks like Charleston is going to miss out on this one. You may remember the Ravalanche back in 2014, 2015. We are not going to have a repeat of the Ravalanche in which large chunks of ice fell down from the Ravenel Bridge and actually crushed a couple cars. Nobody died, which was amazing. Nothing like that in the Charleston area that we expect right now. The forecast has been and will continue to be for rain unless we see something change markedly in the next couple days. The potential for icy precipitation is very, very, very minute. It's not zero, but it is very, very, very minute. So not something that I'm worried about for the Charleston metro area. So we're going to head it off to Scotty here. He's got some maps for us. And Scotty, let's kind of, we got a lot of people who have joined us in the last 25, 30 minutes or so, listening to our Q&A. And thank you all for your questions. And Scotty, let's go ahead and bring your screen share in, and let's talk about what you got here, buddy.
Yeah. So this is can you guys hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I lost connection there with my mic. So this is the winter storm impact graphic. And if you've been a follower of us, we actually had a show about this a couple of years ago when this was first introduced. So we were actually getting to use it, I think, for maybe the first time for a significant winter storm here in the Carolinas. But this is put out by the Weather Prediction Center. And as you can see, there's a little scale over here. And it's a color-coded scale. And you can really see, I'm going to zoom in here to Western North Carolina, upstate of South Carolina. You see these reds and these purples. That is where we're expecting to see major or extreme and major impacts. And that is honestly for a good portion of the area, including the upstate of South Carolina, the Asheville area up into the foothills. And then this orange includes the Charlotte area up towards Boone, down into the almost the Columbia area, just north of that. And then it expands up here into Winston-Salem and in the Greensboro area. So that's where we expect to see moderate impacts. This could result in disruptions of daily life. That's kind of what the tag here is. And that is the scale. And as we kind of push it out here back over towards the eastern part where Raleigh's at, we could see some more minor impacts, but it kind of really hones in on the areas that we expect to see the major impacts. And that's for sleet, freezing rain, and snow. And you can really see this red areas where we expect to see the most major impacts, as well as these little isolated purplish spots. So that is the winter storm impact index. The purplish area, the extreme impacts, is about as large as high as you can go. So we do have that in store, and this will be updated throughout the weekend, so we can continue to show this to you all. But if you kind of find yourself in one of the orange, red, or purplish areas, that's where you need to make sure that you have those plans in place. So if you was to lose power or need something that that area is expected to be some major impacts, and y'all, well, this is I'm going to expand the map out. I just want to show you, this isn't just a North Carolina event. This is up into Virginia, over into Tennessee, Kentucky. It's a big, wide scale, even down here into North Georgia. I mean, the Atlanta area in the moderate impact areas. So this is a large scale storm system. Jared, also heavy rains and some gusty winds at the coast. So if we were to see power outages, it may be a couple of days before you get your power on, because there's only so many power crews, and this is going to encompass a wide scale event. This is probably going to be an event that when we recap 2022 in December, we're probably going to be talking about this event because of the far reach and the impacts that it's going to have. So just be mindful if you live in the upstate of South Carolina, Western North Carolina, the Piedmont areas of North Carolina, and even the upstate and the Piedmont areas of South Carolina. Be mindful of the impacts that are likely from this storm. So
yeah, we had a question too about Quantico, Virginia, actually, and that's very far from where that's very far at this point from our typical territory, but you can see you're in that moderate impact zone. What your precip type looks like, it could very well be a mixture at this point. Again, you're a little further out, and the track of the storm it's going to be very highly dependent on the track of the storm as it skirts up the coast. I mean, Scotty, I've seen, to go back to the main message of how widespread the impacts are. I mean, there could be 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts on Cape Cod this weekend, going into early next week. So we're going to have, it's going to be a big storm, and it's going to affect many people on the East Coast. So travel delays, flight delays, it's bad enough already with COVID. So, it's only going to complicate things as time goes on. So real quick, I think what we should do, we probably, if somebody wants to grab the watches and warnings for that we have for GSP. So we do have winter storm watches in effect for much of the Western North Carolina into the South Carolina upstate. We're going to get that map for you here in a second. And so what that means is, we're certainly monitoring that very closely over the next couple days. It's kind of your signal to get started preparing. What does preparation look like to you guys? You guys are the better snow guys. So I'll defer to you guys and how you like to prepare for snow events.
Yep, I want to pull up the watches here for you right quick.
Cool, no worries. Yeah, we're gonna get those watches out for you guys. There it is. I'll bring it in.
Jared, as for preparations, while you get that loaded in, one thing I like to do here in Asheville, I live on a well. So we are stocking up on a lot of bottled water, gallon jugs of water, so we can have something to flush the toilets if we needed. If electricity were to go out, it'd be really unfortunate for us. So we have gas for our generator. We are making sure that there are no tree limbs near our power lines on the property. What else are we preparing with? Cranking the heat right before the storm starts. So making sure it's as warm as possible in the house, so that if the power were to go out, we could ride it out for as long as we possibly could and let that heat dwindle slowly. Scotty, what else? I'm sure I'm missing stuff.
Yeah, so this right here, this is going to be a lifeline for you.
Yeah.
Make sure your batteries are charged in your cell phones. Make sure that you have a way to stay in communication, a weather radio, battery operated radio. If you're this close to running out of medication, maybe you need that medicine filled for Monday or Tuesday, you might want to go ahead and go to the pharmacy tomorrow or Saturday and say, hey, can I get this filled a day or two in advance? Make sure your car is filled up with gas. And if you do have to be out, I know we have a lot of first responders, nurses, and healthcare, that people that just can't stay at home. So if you do have to be out, make sure that your car is well equipped with gas and you've got some source of heat in there, a blanket or something like that, some water, food, just in case you were to become stranded, you would have a way to survive. So those are all things you need to do. But basically, just having a plan. Don't freak out. Jared's got a good point. As long as you can keep power, just kick back on Sunday, watch it snow, watch some TV, some Netflix, whatever it may be. Just stay inside mostly. We don't want you on the roads because it's definitely going to be a treacherous drive. And guys, I don't think I can get this to share on my screen. So.
Oh no, okay, no worries. What I'm gonna do is we're just gonna fake until we make it here. I want to show you all real quick just kind of what we got going on as far as the watches and warnings, and of course it's not showing that to me because I'm on the wrong screen. So technical issues at 10:30 at night. It's fine. Everything's fine. So
we have a good question.
Yeah, so I'll quickly zoom in here. These are the winter storm watches here. So, for example, Gatlinburg. We had a question about Gatlinburg under winter storm watch. Asheville, Hickory, not yet in Boone. That may be coming though. Probably not too far from now.
There's a little snow event happening up there tonight, so I think Plattsburgh is like, let's let this little snow event go before we issue a winter storm watch.
Sounds about right. Greenville, Anderson, Greenwood, Camden, Charlotte, Spartanburg, all under that winter storm watch. And I just realized that I was not showing you that winter storm watch. So there you go. But that's what it looks like. So there's your that's if you're in that area, and if you're in obviously if you're in anywhere in the Carolinas, especially along 77 or north of I-20 in particular, or around I-20, north of I-20. It's time to get rolling on preparation for this guy.
I-20 to I-40. That's about that's the width. So can we pop up this one question? It's very Hillary from Hillary. She's a traveling nurse, which is a great question. She's don't know what a lot of these generalized areas are like foothills or Piedmont. So that's a great question. So let's, Evan, how about you take mountains, kind of like some of the popular spots. I can take foothills and Piedmont. Maybe we can kind of help out here.
Yeah, so absolutely. Hillary, if you have a place where you are currently right now as a travel nurse, drop the city name. We'll tell you where it is and what your forecast is. But the mountains in Western North Carolina, we're talking about Asheville. We're talking about Hendersonville, Brevard, Boone, Spruce Pine, Marshall, Hot Springs, and then Franklin and Murphy. That's more southwestern North Carolina. I'm going to actually make that a different forecast because they're not expected to get as much snow. So those cities I just named, those are the primary ones here in the mountains, along with Black Mountain as well, and Waynesville. Goodness, I could go on forever. Scotty. That is the westernmost part of the state for the mountains. Go ahead, Scott.
Yep. So if you're in the foothills, you got Marion, Morganton, Lenoir, Taylorsville, Wilkesboro, Hickory, Lincolnton, kind of foothills, Piedmont. Statesville's kind of foothills, Piedmont. Charlotte, obviously, Piedmont. In those areas, if you're in South Carolina, like some of your foothill communities would be, let me zoom in here and get some locations. You got like Duncan and Lyman, Greer, Taylor's, Travelers Rest up towards Landrum. That's kind of like your Gaffney area. That's kind of like your foothills in South Carolina. Rutherfordton's also, Forest City's also a foothill community in North Carolina, as well as Tryon and Polk County. So hopefully, Hillary, some of those towns or cities are familiar to you, and that we can help you out with that. I know it can be confusing to hear us talk about these specialized locations and not being from here, like what the world. So hopefully we can help you out there.
And I'll tell you what, I'm from South Carolina and I'm still learning where all that stuff is. So don't feel bad. I help host this show and I don't know those places off the top of my head.
Oh, she's in Hendersonville.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So there you go. Real quick, Scotty, I wanted to, we got some questions about snow totals, and I've got the Weather Service NDFD forecast through Sunday afternoon, at least here. Let me see something. Let me see if I can get that a little bit better. See if I can't get, no, that's about as, oh yeah, there it is. Sorry guys, I'm just pulling things up, and again, this is live, and sometimes it takes a second, but let me just share this real quick. And what I've got here is hopefully that looks like the right one. So this is through 7:00 on Sunday night here. So we've had some snowfall total questions, and this is the forecast snowfall. This is the Weather Service.
Can't see it yet. yet, Jared.
Can't see it yet. Yes, you can't see it yet because I have to bring it in. Sorry, guys. Let me see if I can't make this even a little bit bigger too. That's not working. All right, so if y'all should be able to see it okay, and we can zoom in a little bit too. So what we'll do is I want to talk about like areas around again, North Carolina. This is where we're seeing, in the mountains of North Carolina, this is certainly where we're seeing our jackpot. We've had questions around Greensboro and everything there, and again, it may be 1 to 3 inches. There is a sharp gradient here as far as how much snow could fall. That is where you're going to see your sleet and ice changeover, and that is going to be a very, very that's a very difficult forecast right now. We can't give you necessarily point values.
I'm going to show you. You've almost got the cursor. Put the cursor on 8, Jared. Okay, so that's Statesville. Now, if you go over to the 5, that's down. Yeah, right there. That's Salisbury. That's Rowan County. That's maybe 30 miles from each other, 30-ish miles from each other. That's a tight gradient. So that kind of shows you that Interstate 77, if you drew Interstate 77, which is a north-south interstate, through that number 8, which is Statesville, that's kind of your tight gradient. Anything west of 77, where you see the 10s and the 11s and the 12s, that's where we think we can hold on to the colder temperatures aloft a little bit longer than what's east of 77, which would be more of your transition zone between sleet, freeze, and rain. So, and that was the Weather Service forecast, guys.
Yes, that is the NDFD. I'm going to pull up the ice map now because this is the situation there that we're seeing, especially for parts of South Carolina, the potential for ice. When we zoom in a little bit here, let me just hit the old zoom button here real quick, and I'll move us around. Columbia metro area, about 1/10 of an inch of ice. You could see, and again, a lot of this stuff is going to fall early, and depending on how the warm front moves in, it could melt it very quickly. So. Generally speaking, in the I-95 corridor in South Carolina, there is going to be a brief period of ice, but right now the forecast does seem to get things warmer as the day goes on. So it's not going to be a long-lasting ice storm. Where we see these deeper pinks, the Charlotte area, I mean, I'm very nervous for Charlotte. Charlotte seems to be, based off of this latest NDFD forecast, it certainly seems to be very close to the bullseye of where the icing threat is. So we want people there to be definitely on their guard for potential power outages and other issues coming into this. Guys, thoughts? Yeah,
so we had a question about Monroe. You can see Monroe is about 28 hundredths of an inch of ice right there. So that's a lot of ice.
Yeah, I mean, any more than a quarter of inch of ice is going to be problematic. And so again, we're going to see that, and that threat. That threat is going to extend back into Georgia too. So even as far west as Atlanta, before things, before the wraparound happens, it changes over to snow. So
yeah, and Jared, this is an interesting point. You see this because you see the Charlotte metro area with this high ice accretion. It kind of maybe tells me this is where we expect the heaviest rain or heaviest freezing rain, and then up towards the Triad where you see just over 1/10 of an inch in Winston-Salem, Greensboro. Maybe that's where we see the most sleet, and then if you go west of that, maybe that's where you see the most snow. So, we're trying to connect the dots here and kind of give you these areas of this is where we think the biggest threat will be. You'll probably see all 3, and in some areas 4 different types of precipitation: rain, sleet, snow, freezing rain. But this freezing rain looks like it's going to hang on the longest around the Charlotte metro area. And if there is a place to ever hang around the longest, that is not where you want it. Thankfully, this is a Sunday, so there wouldn't be as many people out and working and things like that. But, anytime you see ice accretion over a quarter inch, that's not good news, and that's right over the Charlotte metro area.
Certainly not. We've had some questions around Florence and again in the PD area of north of South Carolina. Just real quick, ice is going to be your primary morning concern, transitioning to mostly rain. So not expecting snow to get that far. to the east. I'm sorry. But it does look like that we're going to be running into, just maybe a little bit of ice accretion, but nothing, not quite into the range where we expect tremendous issues. But again, we're going to caveat this whole show with we're still a few days out and things can change.
Yeah.
And so
they will. I think they will.
They will change. So what we're going to ask everybody to do who's watched this tonight, and thank you all so much for your questions. As we get into 10:30, we're going to wind this down, I think, at this point. We may, let's see, I'm just checking in here. Do we want to quickly talk about the types of winter precipitation before we wind this down?
Yeah, let's kind of reset. Let's do some time and precip types. So you guys are going to see us. How do we want to divvy this out? Who wants to cover timing, precip types? You may have a preference.
Right. Timing is pretty straightforward. We could see some snow move into the mountains as early as of North Carolina as early as Saturday night. A good bit of icing beginning to move in Sunday morning. This transitions to rain closer to the coast, east of I-95, or is all rain throughout east of 95. We see a freezing rain and sleet threat moving northward through the Midlands of South Carolina into central North Carolina throughout the day on Sunday. Exact timings are still unclear. There's still timing discrepancies in the models here. So we're going to need to, so again, generally speaking, worst of the weather, Saturday night through Sunday night. That is a time where you're going to kind of want to be hunkered in a little bit on that. Now, as far as, and, the predictions on what will change, positioning of the low, positioning of the warm front, positioning of the tight thermal gradient. Again, what we're dealing with here in Charleston, for example, we're dealing with potentially the potential on Monday or Sunday rather to be 60 degrees at Folly Beach and pushing 30 miles away in Monk's Corner. So a very sharp change in temperature over a short distance. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with that not only in Charleston, but we're going to be dealing with those tight gradients on where the snow line ends and the ice begins, or the snow ends and the sleet ends, or where everything mixes. It's going to be one of those days that is going to be somewhat tricky, and we're going to do our best. We may not know until day of. So that's why we're here giving you ranges, giving you an idea of what could happen, so you can be prepared for that worst case scenario and hope that doesn't work and hope that doesn't pan out. Guys, do we want to talk about real quick, getting into the types of winter precipitation and why, why we're seeing what we're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Scotty, I think you actually have a good explainer for this if you want to lead it.
Yeah. So imagine the air, a column of air. Okay. So imagine you're looking up from the ground up to the sky. If that whole column of air is at or below 32 degrees, whatever precipitation falls is going to be snow. It's a snowflake. It falls to the surface as snowflake. But what we're going to see with this system is we're going to see about 5,000 feet off the ground. There's going to be a warm layer. Great graphic that we got here. So that orange area is the warm nose. That temperature could be just barely above freezing, like 33, 34, 35, but it melts that snowflake. And once the snowflake melts, it can't reform back into a snowflake. So it either falls as freezing rain, and that's just rain, liquid rain that freezes on contact at the surface. So the surface is below freezing. So if that rain falls in the trees and the temperature is 30 degrees, it starts to accrue on the trees, the branches, power lines, and that's freezing rain. Sometimes that layer of warm air is shallow, maybe just a couple 100 feet where it's above freezing. So that snowflake melts and then refreezes into what we call these sleet pellets. And this is little tiny balls of sleet. It looks like a BB basically. And those are sleet pellets. And that sleet, if we get sleet, I always say sleet kills everything. So if you get snow and then it turns to sleet, it's really going to just kill those snowfall amounts, because it compacts the snow on the ground. And it also keeps us from having snowfall and those bigger totals. So it's all about the warm air above us, the warm nose that we call it, and where that sets up. And Evan, that is dependent on how this low pressure tracks. If it tracks a little bit off the coast, then we're all in colder air. But if it tracks inland, that warm, moist air from the Atlantic gets pushed into the Piedmont, the foothills, and the mountains, and that's where all the craziness starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That was a great explanation, Scotty and Jared with the graphic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead, and we're getting a little late in the evening there. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And again, we're going to have a replay up on YouTube here right after we're done here, so you can go back if you missed anything or you want to watch us again. We're on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Give us a follow there. Give us a Carolina Weather Group wherever social media is sold. We're going to be updating y'all frequently throughout this event, keeping you up to date on what's going to be happening over the next few days. It will be nothing if not interesting. So and when the weather guys say that it's interesting, that's maybe not so good. But before we go, Scotty, Evan, any final thoughts from you guys?
I have one final thought. I have to tell this to myself, so I'm going to tell it to all of you weather people who are watching tonight, meteorologists in the field. Get some rest, okay? It's okay to miss one model run. You need to close your brain off, get you some rest. It's going to be a long weekend for you folks who love the weather and like to follow every model run. Get you some rest. I promise you, you're not going to miss much. You need to kind of just slow down and shut down for a little bit. You got to disconnect for a little bit at least. And that GFS or that European model will run tomorrow morning, and you can see what it says. So don't stay up late tonight. That's my advice.
It will be there in the morning.
That's right.
And Evan, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, just bottom line is we've got a major winter storm coming. We've been watching it for days, and at this point, we're certain that there will be major impacts, especially across the western half of the Carolinas. So rain, or not rain, but sleet, freezing rain, or snow, whatever it may be, if you're in that forecast area where you could get one of those three, don't go anywhere. Just cancel your plans. Monday's a holiday, which is wonderful news. So stay home and plan on not going anywhere until Tuesday at the earliest.
Yep, absolutely. And again, one of my favorite electronic music artists is BT, and he has a song that is a wonderful meteorology song. The only constant is change. And so we're going to keep you up to date on that over the next few days as things continue to evolve, the trends get refined and locked in. So more to come. And the best thing to do right now is just stay attuned to the forecast, be ready for power outages on Sunday, and just make sure that you have a good place to be. So without further ado, I think this is going to do it for this round of Talking Carolina. Let's talk Carolina weather. We've talked a lot of Carolina weather tonight. Thank you all so much for your questions and your comments. And again, I expect that we will be here at least a couple more times before the main event. So stay tuned to our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're on Instagram too. Follow us, like, subscribe. We will keep you up to date. And for Evan in Asheville, Scotty in Morganton, and James in Charlotte, I'm Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina, wishing you all a wonderful evening. And thank you for watching us. Thank you for your trust, and we'll talk to you soon.